I'm thinking that some people are going to have to mute their microphones.
Chuck?
All right, so just for the purpose of everyone attending tonight, the person who logged on is Fred. The feedback stopped the minute you muted the microphone. So if you need to talk at any point, just unmute and we'll do the best we can to suffer through all the feedback. So with that, you guys probably heard the announcement that this meeting is being recorded. It's also being simulcast on YouTube. So in the interest of full transparency, I'm letting everyone know the meeting's being recorded right now. So with that, I would like to call the October 5th, 2020 meeting of the Town of Cicero Zoning Board of Appeals to order. Ms. August, please call the roll.
Mr. Rabia?
I'm here.
Ms. Luckett?
I'm here.
Mr. Palladino?
Hello?
Are you
Hello?
here? Are you here?
Mr. Natale's here.
I think Mr. Palladino unmuted very quickly and then muted himself again. So I saw his lips moving. He's here.
Okay, and Mr. Stanton.
And I'm here too. So please note that tonight's meeting is being simulcast on YouTube and is also being recorded. I'd like to present some housekeeping rules to ensure that this meeting goes smoothly. Please make all efforts to cut down on background noise or mute yourself, including cell phones and pagers. Please allow everyone ample time to finish speaking. Please announce your name prior to speaking to assist with following the flow of conversation. With that, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of the United
Of the
States of
United
America,
States of
States of
America,
America,
to the republic
to the
which
republic,
stands,
which stands
one nation under
one
God,
nation, under God,
indivisible, with
indivisible,
liberty and
with
justice
liberty
for
and
all.
justice for all.
Hey, Chuck,
Yes.
it's Rob Beck. I finally got a new laptop that actually works.
Well, welcome, Rob. And for everyone who doesn't know, Rob is our ad hoc. So
Serious frustration the last couple months.
welcome back.
Oh, thank you.
Has everyone read the minutes of the August 31st, 2020 meeting?
Yes, Gary.
Are there any corrections?
No, not on my part.
No,
Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the August 31st, 2020 meeting minutes. It's Mark Henry.
Do I have a second?
I'll second. No, whatever.
Very
Give it to
good.
Terry.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Rabia?
Yes,
Ms. Luckett?
yes to the motion.
Mr. Palladino?
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Natale?
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes to the motion. Cicero Town Board acknowledges the importance of full public participation in all public meetings. Therefore, we urge all who wish to address those in attendance to please utilize Zoom as provided. At this time, I will make a motion that all actions taken tonight are type 2 actions and have a negative that is no impact on the environment unless otherwise indicated. Do I have a second?
Second,
Second by Ms. Luckett. Please call the roll.
Mr. Rabia?
yes, the motion.
Ms. Luckett?
yes to the motion.
Mr. Palladino?
Yes to the motion.
Natali,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes to the motion. I will briefly review the process for tonight's meeting for the benefit of those present, as this process has been modified in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. First, the applicant will have an opportunity to describe their project. Second, the board will ask questions about the project. Third, I will open a public hearing where any comments collected as prescribed in the meeting notice are read aloud and into the record. Fourth, the board members will then follow up on any questions posed in the public hearing, and the applicant will then be given the opportunity to respond to those public input questions and provide additional information. Fifth, after the public hearing is closed, the board members will again have the opportunity to question the applicant. Sixth, the board will openly discuss amongst ourselves the 5 factors that contribute to the final decision. At the end of the discussion of each factor, each board member will provide a yes or no answer. Please note this board does not have a pre-agenda meeting, so there is no prior discussion of cases outside of this meeting. And finally, a motion will be made either approving or denying the requested variance, seconded, and voted upon. So with that, our first case tonight is Muammar Alik for a property on 7623 East Taft Road.
Good
Mr.
evening,
Elliott.
everyone.
Oh, good evening. If you'd like to tell us about your project?
Sure. So we're basically a small car dealership with 2 garages, and we would just like to add an addition for our storage that is required. For now, we were using sheds, basically, so we got rid of 1 shed and we'll be getting rid of another one. And so basically, that's all we need, just a storage addition.
Okay.
Is that it?
So for the benefit of the board members, it's moving a little bit slowly tonight. Hopefully everybody can see the screen share that I'm doing. This is the existing site plan showing the vinyl shed and the existing addition to the building. And then this is the proposed. One thing I'd like to note before we get into any questioning is that we do have a resolution from the Onondaga County Planning Board. Mr. Alik, are you in possession of this resolution? Mr. Alik, are you still? Oh, you know what? You're muted. You're following the directions. Thank you. But if you could unmute yourself, I just want to make sure that you received the Onondaga County Planning Board decision. Okay, we might be having some technical difficulties here with Mr. Alik. Steve, would you mind, Mr. Procopio, would you mind trying to give Mr. Alik a call to let him know he's dropped off the meeting?
Sure.
Thank
Yep, I'll do that right now.
So again, I have to find myself apologizing to everyone for another delay in the meeting. Hopefully we'll be able to get this resolved quickly. If not, we'll move on to our other 2 cases and hope we can get Mr. Alik back in time to finish this.
Mr. Stanton, this is Tom DiTullio. I'm
Yes.
the architect for Mr. Alik.
Okay.
And we are aware of the sanitary system, actually the raised bed in the back area there. So we took care not to be in the area of his septic system. So we took that into consideration before we did so.
All right, sorry, we're back. I apologize.
No worries. Thank you.
All right, so I apologize.
No, that's quite all right. Everybody's trying to, the technology's not exactly perfect. So we did get some confirmation from Mr. DiTullio that
Okay.
this has been somewhat addressed. Just wanted to make note that the county planning board did recommend the following modifications. I know one's been addressed. Just want to make sure that the board realizes that they're also encouraging us to minimize exposure to damage from natural hazards, uphold local flood ordinance requirements. So with that, would like to turn it over to the board for any questions.
I have a quick question. The county planning board letter said that you're adding an auto repair shop. Is that true?
No, it is actually, we actually have an auto repair shop with 2 lifts that we use currently. Just for our cars. We don't take outside customers because we're a small dealership. So after we get the cars from auction, we prepare them here for sale. So we're not adding anything that will be used as the car repair or anything, just as pure storage for tires and parts and our tools and
Okay, I thought
etc.
so.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the misunderstanding was it was classified as a vehicle repair
Hmm, okay.
Oh.
for both zoning and building department and building assessment for the code review. I apologize. This is Tom DiTullio that said that, the architect.
Thank you, Mr. DiTullio. Any other questions before I go to the public hearing?
This is Gary Palladino. I just got a couple quick questions. One is, how high is this addition going to be? And second question is, maybe it'll pertain a little bit to the county's request. Are you going to have gutters or divert the water in any direction from the roof?
So the addition will be 14 feet high. And I mean, we weren't planning on adding gutters. If you guys are recommending, we can. We definitely will, if that's something.
I don't know, Chuck, would that fall more under the planning board to recommend gutters? I was more curious than trying.
We were not planning on adding gutters.
Yeah, I would think that would be more, if it is even under the planning board's purview, that it would be more them.
Yeah, it was more of a, I was more curious, only because of the winters that we have here and the blacktop and other things that happen when the cold weather hits our water. But that was it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Hey, Chuck, am I allowed to ask a question as the ad hoc?
I don't see why not. Let's go.
All right. On the previous plan, it looked like there was a small addition on the back of the building. Is that going to be demolished and replaced, or is that going to be added to?
It is going to be demolished.
Okay.
Yep.
Is it going to be a flat roof, a pitched roof? What kind of roof design are you looking at? Because that would
It's
indicate
gonna be
what type of gutters may or may not be needed.
It's gonna be a pitched roof.
Okay,
But
fair enough. That's it.
That was Robert Bick, everyone.
so basically, both of the small sheds that are on there, one has been removed. So we'll remove the other one as well, and the small addition that's already on there. So basically, everything will be clean there.
Okay, very good. So at this time, I will open the public hearing. Steve, we weren't in receipt of any comments, were we?
We did not receive any comments, no.
Okay. So there being no for or against comments, at this time, I will close the public hearing.
Mr. Stanton, this is Tom DiTullio.
Yes.
I think Mr. Leak did receive a letter from the neighbor that has the adjoining property to the north of him.
Okay.
I think he may have provided it to Mr. Procopio. if he has it, we'll make sure he gets that.
Okay,
Stating there's no objections for us being closer than 25 feet required.
that's great. Thank you for letting us know that. And we did not receive that, but any little bit helps.
Yeah, if you guys need a copy, we can provide a copy to anyone that needs it.
Yeah, I would think you could send that to Mr. Procopio's office just for the record. Please.
Yeah, thank you. But I think Mr. Procopio already has it. He's just, thank you.
I'm not sure we received that. I don't see that.
Definitely, I will send you another copy, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So does the board have any further questions?
Can you repeat, that neighbor didn't have any problems with the proposal? Was that what
Yes, not at all.
they didn't? Okay.
If there are no other questions, would someone like to discuss the 5 factors?
This is Gary. I'll be glad to do that, Mr. Chairman. Before I make a motion, I would like to discuss factor number 1, whether an undesirable change would be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties will be created. The answer is no, because the variance is actually an addition to an existing commercial building that is in a mixed neighborhood. In fact, there is a restaurant now closed, but has recently been purchased right across the street. There's also residential property right next to his property. So do I have agreement that the answer is no?
I agree.
Great.
So what, Anne Marie, you are actually still muted. And I apologize for not clarifying because I said this before some of the board members came on. Just to keep things orderly, this was a suggestion of Mr. Natale. We'd like to go down in the same order that we do the voting. So we'll start with Mr. Rabia and go down and everybody can be recorded as such.
I
Mr.
agree.
You can go, you could, say, I agree. Or
That's-
do you want me to call their names? It doesn't matter to me.
I think if we just go down the line, we're good.
Yeah.
This is Terry. I agree.
Gary Palladino, I agree.
And Chuck Stanton, I agree.
Okay, number 2, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. The answer to that is no, because of limitations in the dimensions of the property. Actually, because there's back of that property is actually owned by National Grid, and there could not be any building back there. So do I have an agreement that this is the only thing feasible?
It's Mark, I agree.
This is Terry. I agree.
Gary Palladino, I agree.
Chuck Stanton agrees.
Okay, factor number 3, whether the area variance is substantial. Actually, in similar situations, a 36% variance would be substantial. But because this property is isolated and therefore unbuildable behind it, as I stated earlier, that National Grid owns it, it is not substantial. No, I consider it, the answer is yes, it is substantial, but it does not carry that much weight because it is not buildable back there.
That I agree with, is Mark.
This is Terry. I agree.
Gary, I agree.
Chuck Stanton agrees.
Factor number 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. The answer is no. There is adequate drainage in the back of the property and towards that would be the south side of the property.
I agree. It's Mark.
This is Terry. I agree.
Gary Palladino, I agree.
Chuck Stanton agrees.
Okay, factor number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. The answer to this is yes. He bought the property knowing that any future development would need a variance. However, this does not in itself prevent the granting of a variance.
It's Mark. I agree with Gary.
This is Terry. I agree.
Gary Palladino, I agree.
Chuck Stanton agrees.
Okay, with that said, I would like to make a motion to approve the area variance for Mr. Alec at 7623 East Taft Road for a variance for a proposed 17 by 35 building addition that has a rear yard setback of 16 feet where a minimum distance of 25 is required.
Chuck Stanton seconds. Ms. August, please call the roll.
Am I on, Mr. Rabia?
Yes to the motion.
Ms. Luckett?
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Palladino?
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Natale?
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes to the motion. Motion carried. Congratulations.
Thank you, everyone, so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So if everyone can bear with me while I queue up the next. Okay, our second case tonight is Mr. Fred Ritter for a property on 8502 Tuttle Road. Mr. Ritter, if you could talk to us about your project.
Can you hear me okay? My computer is, I don't know what to do. I don't know if you can understand me.
Chuck, you're
I
muted.
lost you.
If everyone but Mr. Ritter can mute, and let's see how that works.
Say it again, please.
So what I was hoping was that if everyone but Mr. Ritter can mute, then Mr. Ritter can unmute and hopefully the feedback goes away.
I don't know how to do this.
Does he have two devices open? Fred, do you have your phone and your computer on?
Yeah, that was my question, because I see Fred and I see him, his picture on the name Carol.
So what you're going to want to do, Mr. Ritter, is on your computer, there should be a microphone icon there. If you click that, that will actually mute your computer and allow you to talk through your phone.
Can you hear me now?
So a lot of feedback. So Mr. Ritter, the one thing that okay, you're muted on your computer. How about if you unmute your computer? Let's see what happens.
Did that help?
No, that did not, unfortunately. Mr. Procopio, you've probably sat in on a few more of these where we've had issues like this. Can you offer any suggestions?
Yeah, this one hasn't occurred before, so I don't understand. He's got two devices. One is his phone and one is his computer. So if he unmutes his screen and leaves the phone off, has he tried that yet?
I don't think so.
Well, this guy, why do you have two devices?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Shut the phone off or shut the computer off. I mean, let's eliminate one of them.
Looks like Mr. Ritter has his technical support with him, so we'll let them work. And then we can all imagine how much we took this all for granted when we could all sit in the same room together.
Let's try just turning off one of the devices.
Or even just get it away from the computer in another room.
That's true. If you do have to use your phone to communicate, the visuals are really more for the rest of the board. So if you wanted to take your phone and unmute it and be in another room where there's not the crosstalk between the computer and the phone, that may help.
Chuck, did you see his note in the chat? He said whoever is the host should be able to kick one of them off. They're only on one device. They're not on two. They're not on two devices. They're not on a phone.
So Mr. Maurizio is actually the host on this, and he has not given me the power to boot people off the. Let me see if I can. Give me a second here. So it might be a slight lag. Mr. Maurizio was in another meeting at the time, so we'll see how this works. I got confirmation that we disconnected Fred, although it's still showing up. So there may be a bit of a lag on that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that was exactly what I wanted you to do. Thank you.
Okay, that wasn't me. That was my daughter. I can't.
Well, thank you to your gracious tech support for helping us out there.
It shows my wife's name, but it's me.
I was thinking I was going to have to do a ventriloquist act or something at this
Oh,
point.
thank you.
So if you could please explain your project, we would.
Yes, I had an old shed on the property, which I come to find out was on my neighbor's right of way to the waterfront, which according to the court papers said it couldn't be there. And it was also underneath Mohawk Niagara power line. And they informed me that it's not supposed to be under there. The shed was old. And I apologize for this part, poor decision-making. I just went to get rid of that shed and put a new one on and get it off of everything. And the only place I could put it to fit was where it is now. The new survey shows it 10.4 feet off of the road right of way. It is actually 20 feet off the macadam though. It's not, there's more room there than not. It is a dead end road. That's why I'm asking for the variance to keep my shed.
Okay. Mr. Ritter, are you also in possession of the resolution from the Onondaga County Planning Board?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So within the whys and wherefores, it did say it wished to minimize exposure to damage from natural hazards, uphold local flood ordinance requirements. I believe this led to the letter from the New York State professional engineer recommending some modifications or some alterations to the installation to be able to allow floodwaters to pass. So when I was out there today, I saw that there was that the lift that he talked about, the raising up over the existing ground to allow floodwater to pass through and some filter stone. Did you actually get those tie downs installed also?
Not yet, waiting on this decision. I did locate them and stuff. I just didn't purchase them yet based on this decision.
Okay.
I will, and I can send photos when I actually install them.
Okay. I know Mr. Procopio's office will probably be very interested to see those go in should this hearing.
That's not a problem.
Okay. I mean, at this time, if any of the board has any other questions, we'll entertain those.
Mr. Ritter, why is this the only spot where it could go, or could it have gone, I guess, almost directly? Chuck, where's the, I guess it'd be south, right? Where's the north-south here? Could it have moved, I think it's south, yeah, could it have moved directly south?
Directly south
closer,
would be,
rather than closer to the road, move the existing shed over towards the structure of the home, right there, yeah.
move your icon where you were talking.
So
There's a sidewalk there, and that's the reason I didn't come back. And it still wouldn't make what's the setback, 30 feet because of the power lines. I just cleared the power lines at this point.
Are the power lines on the updated survey? Because I don't see them on the survey.
It's not on the updated survey, and I don't know why. It's on the old survey.
So
But
this,
that's the pole right there.
yeah,
Yeah,
Mr. Robbie, if you can see this, the pole.
I see it. I see
Okay.
it. I don't know. I mean, the rest of the board can help me, but I don't know that we've looked at overhead power lines as a determining criteria where we locate a structure, right? Maybe we do, and I just missed it, but I don't recall a discussion in that area.
No, it's never, this is Gary. No, it's never come up again before.
Mr. Procopio, can you maybe weigh in on this? I'm a little curious because this is the first time I've heard that used as a reason.
Yeah, this is the first time I'm hearing about it too, besides reading it in the application. There probably is some minimum distance around the electrical service into the home from a structure or a roof. I'm presuming that's what he means. Was this shed taller than the last one?
No,
So when did you hear from National Grid that you couldn't erect another shed underneath or near the entrance cable to your residence?
I had contacted National Grid regarding a new meter location. And they said not a problem, but my shed could not be there. I cannot have any kind of structure under their power lines.
Is this just the power just that serves your home only?
Yes, and then again, the second thing was it was on the neighbor's right of way,
Right. No,
which I have court
I
papers.
have heard in the past that they do have minimum distances, particularly from a metal roof. Does this have a metal roof?
No, it does not.
Okay.
And the reason why I asked, Mr. Ritter, is because as a board, we're charged with finding the minimum variance for us to approve, right? And
Yes.
I see several alternatives, instead of where you placed it, I see other areas where it could have gone. Asphalt walk. I'm sorry, go
Yes.
ahead.
Yeah, it would be, the other reason for not pulling it back is it's got an A roof, a pitch roof to it. And so does the garage, and everything would be dumping right in that narrow area between the shed and the garage if it got moved back.
This is Gary. I have a question, sir. When you look at the expense of a shed that expensive, why didn't you expand the garage and then give it a cleaner look for the front of your house and not run into the possibility that you needed a variance?
That's a good question. I wish I would have thought of it, and guess that's my only answer. I did not think of putting an addition on because I had a shed and I just redid the shed. That's all.
So this is Chuck Stanton. One thing is a reminder to the rest of the board, despite the fact that we have a structure here, we do have to look at this as if the applicant is coming before us with no structure, that they're proposing to actually build this in this location. And so unfortunately, the fact that it's here and built doesn't really pertain that much to what we're dealing with tonight, unfortunately.
Right. Let me just follow up on our chairman's comments. If you would have come before us with this plan, I'm sure we would have come up with either Mr. Rabia's suggestion or my suggestion to expand the garage and give it a nice cleaner look. And therefore you wouldn't have needed a variance. So we have to look at this as if it wasn't there. Now, Steve, did you have to issue a stop order on this?
It came to our attention after it was built and done. So we contacted them that a permit was required, and then the issues relative to the floodway and the building setback. So Mr. Ritter's been working on all of these since that time.
Okay, thank you.
This is Gary Palladino. Yeah, one of the pictures shows snow around the shed, so I didn't get back until July, so I know that wasn't a current picture. Why I'm speaking. Mr. Ritter, can you tell why? I don't know, maybe you answered it and I didn't hear, but why is the shed in front and not behind? Or what are you going to do with the shed? What are you going to put in it? And I know you had an existing shed there, which you said, and you just replaced it. And I understand the thought process behind it. I've got one, so let's put another one right there. I mean, that makes total sense to me, but I guess, did you have a real need for it to be up front?
No, just because of what National Grid said and what the court paper said. That was the only reason.
So what are you going to put in the shed, if you don't mind?
Just storage. tools, gardening stuff, just
Okay.
the boat, life jackets, my boat, just all
okay.
sorts of.
And I see you have a vent, a sewer vent, or right next to the shed.
Yes, they placed it next to it so it wouldn't get damaged. I had them do that on purpose.
Okay, that makes sense.
Can I ask Gary, what were your thoughts for expanding the garage where he wouldn't need a variance? I don't see where he wouldn't need a variance if he went farther out towards the road.
No, it would have been right next to the garage. It would have been, it would not have been any closer than the front of the garage.
Oh,
To
I
the
see.
north,
You're saying
expansion to the north.
making it wider.
Yes.
I see.
Maybe changing the whole roof line, I mean, I'm not a construction guy, but I'm sure Mr. Palladino could have come up with some ideas to make it an addition, an expansion rather than a separate entity. Because I know a shed that size is pretty expensive, probably in excess of $5,000. But that's, the architectural part of it is not part of our, our bailiwick. However, like Mr. Rabbi has said, we want to minimize the variance. And there certainly is other alternatives.
Any other questions, folks? I'm pulling up an aerial right now for everybody's benefit.
I mean, it could come back. I mean, it could meet the front setback. It can come back 20 feet, right? Not an issue. Just pull it back, right? You'd have a little bit of separation you have to deal with between your garage and the shed. I don't know exactly what the resulting distance would be, but I think you'll be wider than what the fire rating is. I don't have my scale out, but let's see, it'd probably be 7 feet between the shed and the garage.
But is that, Mr. Rabia, that, I think Mr. Ritter addressed that by having the both peaks facing each other and dumping snow, and which would now be an alleyway. If I understand what you were suggesting.
I'm just trying to find a solution.
Well, no, I agree. I'm just looking at it.
To turn the shed sideways, maybe, turn the shed sideways and get it off. I don't know. I mean, move it to the backyard. I mean, there's several different options available to us.
Sure.
Mm.
Did you do that, Chuck?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Could you actually see what was going on?
Yeah, but that's fine.
Okay.
Well, it sounds like we had two problems. I guess one is the National Grid power line, and the other was the right of way.
Yeah, I would. Sorry for cutting you off, Gary. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, for what it sounds like, that takes precedence right now over National Grid because of the uncertainty as to whether or not they can mandate where we place things.
Yeah, Steve, this is Chuck. I know you already said that the whole National Grid issue was kind of new to you. Is there a way we can confirm that?
We probably would have to talk to a planner at National Grid and for their regulation, because they do have their own guidelines and requirements for their services. So again, I've heard it before. I mean, there are some minimum requirements in the National Electrical Code too. I just don't know what the distance of that cable is over the roof.
Hey, Chuck. It's Rob.
Yes, Mr. Beck.
I have heard of National Grid putting a halt to things like pole barns and swimming pools under their easements in other towns. I don't know how that applies to Cicero and what, how you guys feel about that, but I have seen it happen before.
I don't believe this is an easement, though. This is just
Just
land
not an
under.
easement, just avoiding the power line.
Yeah, I think this is just
Okay.
land under service into the home, as best as we've been told, right? I don't see, this is the most current plan. I don't see anything about a National Grid easement on here.
Okay, okay.
No, that's very true, Mr. Robbie, and I was going to point that out also, that I don't think, I understand the whole easement issue because you can't build within someone else's property, so to speak, but this doesn't seem like it applies here.
Just a suggestion to throw out there. This is Gary Palladino again. To try and maybe gain a little bit and minimize the variance. If one of the things that Mr. Ritter said is that he's got his sewer vent, I guess it is, up alongside the shed for protection. If we move the shed back and over and south, so east and then south, so that and we're talking about, honestly, maybe 2-3 feet. So, and then over, we could go over a couple feet, which would move it away from the power line a little more. And now it would put the sewer vent line in front of and up against the shed. So I guess what I'm saying is the vent line would be protected from being hit or knocked over by accident. And the shed would be 2 to 3 feet farther from the road. And it would also be, could be whatever the width is before the door, before we see the ramp, maybe another 2 foot to the south. It's not a big change, but it is a change.
So, Mr. Palladino, this is Chuck Stanton. You're suggesting moving the shed such that the vent is basically in the crook formed by the ramp, between the ramp and the shed itself.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Mr. Natale, you were the one that brought up some concerns about the location and maybe some of the compromises that could be taken. What are your opinions on this?
I think Gary's got a good idea. We'll protect the vent, we'll move it back. I can't determine how far that is. It's got to be maybe 2.5 feet or whatever. That's a possibility. It's still a fairly substantial variance. I'd have to get the feeling of the rest of the board.
I mean, personally, I'm just trying to find a solution to make everybody happy. I mean, where he's located on that road, I mean, I've lived in Cicero about 50 years of my life, and I've never even known that road existed. So that tells you the number of times I've driven down there. I don't know what the expense is to move the shed. But I guess what I'm saying is that if we needed to do something, I would suggest that. But if I don't want to speak for Mr. Ritter, but if he didn't have to do anything, I'm sure he would be happy with leaving it where it is too. So I guess we just need to get some more feedback from my colleagues.
Well, this is Gary again, Gary Natale. I drove the street twice. I happen to know about the street. It's dead end street, but there's no other shed in the front yard on that whole street.
There's one in the picture. Excuse me, sir.
That, Mr. Ritter, that is actually, this structure is actually
Yes.
a garage, isn't it?
It might be
Like I said, there's no other shed
shed.
on that street in the front yard. Yes.
Yeah, that's a garage.
Now, Steve, did you get, is there anything in the file that we have from National Grid stating that?
No, I haven't received anything like that. Maybe Mr. Ritter has something in his possession.
I don't have it in my possession. It was, I met with them and they're the ones who said about it.
Well,
I
let's do
I can
this.
request.
You know, there's no urgency here, I think. I know you're from out of town and I don't know when you wrap up your season, but why don't, I would consider a motion to postpone this till we get clarification on the National Grid situation. How does everybody else feel?
This is Chuck Stanton. I was actually going to go in that direction if we were talking about this for more than 5 minutes more. So I don't think without that one additional piece of information about the conflict with the National Grid lines, that we can really make a informed decision here that would benefit the applicant or the town.
Is this something you'd like me to do, or is this something that you'd look into?
Mr. Ritter, this is something that we would appreciate you looking into and getting in writing from National Grid, so that we could actually see it in front of us, as opposed to, a lineman coming out to your house and saying that, that's not what we would like you to do.
Agreed. Would I give that to Steve?
Yes, you would wind up giving that to Mr. Procopio. And what we would wind up doing is, if we went in this direction, we would defer this to our November meeting, which I believe is the 2nd. I don't have the benefit of my.
It's November 9.
Yes, because we're missing election day. So we would want to, Mr. Ritter, what we would wind up wanting is that letter back at least a week before, well, at maximum a week before the meeting, so that we can get you back on the schedule.
That's fine. Do I need to place another check for the next meeting, or?
No, because we'll defer it. Your current application fee will still be valid.
Thank you. I will get that to him as quick as possible.
All right, thank you. Mr. Robbie,
Chuck,
say something?
yeah, if the line, if National Grid sends a letter that says the line is really an issue, do we need it on the survey?
That's a great question. I would definitely appreciate seeing that line on the survey.
And again, for the benefit of Mr. Ritter, in 22 years, I've never heard of this, right? So maybe there's something here that we don't understand, but we've never had to put an overhead power line on a survey, and any survey that I've looked at, in whatever it is now, 22, 23 years. So it seems curious to me. I'd be interested in seeing what you have pretty quickly, and then, maybe Steve taking a look at it and deciding whether or not, it's going to be something's going to be an issue for us or not.
Yeah. One other thing, Gary, Natalie here. One other thing, Mr. Ritter, while you're doing it, you might as well put that easement on the new survey.
Oh, that's not on it. Both those things are on the old survey, not the new one. I will give them a call.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Natali. I was going to bring that up also if you didn't. Okay, so folks, if we're all agreed, I will make a motion to defer this case until our November 9th meeting. And this is pending both a letter provided by Mr. Ritter from National Grid explaining their conditions for structures underneath an overhead service. The showing, if that's the case, then also showing the overhead service from pole 2A to the structure 8502, and also showing the easement. And that's
Second.
Oh, very good. Thank you, Mr. Natali. Ms. August, please call the roll.
Mr. Rabia,
Yes.
Ms. Luckett,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Palladino,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Natali,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes to the motion, motion carried. And please note, I did not open the public hearing, so we will have to have that next time. Mr. Ritter, thanks for being cooperative with this, and we hope to see you next month.
And you will. Thank you very much. Have a nice day and be safe.
Thank you, you too.
I got to get out of this thing now.
We all feel that way.
No, I got to get out of the computer. I don't know this stuff.
We
Not
know
the
what you
meeting.
meant. We know what you meant.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks,
Thank
you too. All right, so if everyone can bear with me while I queue up the next application here.
Whew.
I did want to note for everyone's benefit that we did have some late breaking information on this project that was provided on Friday. Just wanted to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to take a look at that.
Shall.
Okay, so with that, our third case tonight is Terry Ross for a property on 5713 Cognite Road. Mr. Ross, if you could tell us about your project. Oh, Mr. Ross, you're gonna have to unmute yourself.
Okay, am I muted now?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, good. How you doing, sir?
Good, how are you?
Well, I don't feel as bad as the last guy, so I'm a little quieter, I think. What I'm doing is I'm building a 40 by 48 cold storage pole barn. And it's just for like lawnmowers, cars. We own a bunch of motorcycles, cars, crap like that. No utilities or anything. That's it.
Okay. I did want to note before we start with questions that we have another resolution from the Onondaga County Planning Board. Mr. Ross, are you in possession of that?
Yes, I have it.
Okay. So
The one for the DEC?
yeah, one of the big things they wanted was the location of wetlands, and I noticed. Thank you for going through the effort of showing the wetlands. I think so. This is actually national wetlands. There are also state wetlands too that are involved here, which show behind your property. So have you been able to get some more information on that?
He came out today, and it's more than 100 feet away. Tiffany Tucalti came out today. She was going to try and email me something, but she didn't know if she was going to get back to the office in time. But she said I could just give you her number and you guys could call, or.
Steve, I guess that's Mr. Procopio. That's up to you. I believe I did see her on site today when I stopped by. Are we gonna, Steve? You muted yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I have not, I mean, I know who Tiffany is. I have not spoke to her regarding this, but Mr. Ross did say she was out today. So, and I know in the past she's walked other sites, so I believe she's going to determine the actual wetland boundary in adjacent area, and then let Mr. Ross know, and certainly we would confirm if there's a necessity for a wetland permit for his proposed project, and we would before we issued a permit.
She said I didn't need any permits because I was 100 feet away, and she didn't have anything to give me right there. I asked her if I could have something in writing, and she said, no, they'll just call me and let me know. Just let them know that I came by, and she gave me her card for them, for you to call her.
Typically, there's written confirmation that she would provide at a later time. I understand what you
Absolutely.
by
Yeah.
tonight.
Well, that,
I said I could understand why she wouldn't be able to get that to you by this evening. She was just there today.
I appreciate her.
Written, there's typically
Yeah.
confirmation. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I guess I'll open up to the board for general questions. I'll just note that I was out there this afternoon to take another look at it, and it looks like we're busy clearing and grading for the new structure. So we're ready and raring to go.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
Absolutely,
absolutely.
Ms. Luckett.
If the house had a commercial use, would we even be here? Would the private garage with an accessory use be allowed if the house had a commercial use?
If the house had an approved site plan, so in commercial districts, you're allowed to have approved use by the planning board with or without an attached dwelling. So conceivably, there could have been an approved site plan that had a residential component to it, but then this building would be going to the planning board for approval as a new commercial structure, and you'd be proposing a structure that was for commercial use, not
But
for.
it would be allowed by right, right? I mean, it's just the form and the placement that would be out of.
Well, I think the real issue. I'm sorry, Steve. I didn't
No,
mean
go
to
ahead.
cut you off.
No, go ahead, Chuck.
I think the real issue here is that because we're zoned general commercial here, this is an existing non-conforming use of the
Right.
property, and putting that pole barn there is actually expanding or enlarging that use, which is
Exactly.
why we're sitting looking at this tonight.
Mhm.
Did that, Ms. Luckett, did that answer your question?
No,
or
it
did I
does,
just-
but I think that if there was a commercial use in the house, and there's not, so that's not what we're looking at. My question was, would the structure be okay? And I think it
No,
would be.
it's still expanding a non-conforming use, whether it's commercial or not.
I don't
I
think
think,
so.
I think to what Ms. Luckett was saying is say this was next door, say this was the Walgreens was here, and they wanted to build an out parcel within the parcel building here, an extra building. They would actually have to come in front of the planning board instead of us. So it would not necessarily be an issue because the planning board would be reviewing this and we wouldn't touch it at all.
Right.
Is there any questions, guys?
Chuck, I've got a question. Mr. Ross, is there a driveway planned to access this storage building at some point?
Yes, and it's going right down on the side of my house, right to the back.
On the right side of your house, past the garage?
Yes, right, exactly,
Okay.
where the driveway is now, yes.
Okay.
If there's no more questions, Rob, it's Mark. So as I contemplate this and looked at this a half dozen times on my way up and down into Cicero over the last month or so, I don't have any issue with it. I think it's, while it's an expansion of a non-conforming use, I get it. It's meeting all the bulk regulations as far as rear setback and side setback. I think where it's located, you won't even see it. In fact,
Yeah,
I don't know how big that barn is next to you, but that's an equally sized pole barn next to you. Maybe bigger than 48 by 40. I'm not sure. I didn't pace it off or walk it.
Yeah, it's really big. Mine looks like a mini barn.
Yeah. So like I said, I think where you have it cited is from my perspective, probably the best spot on the property to quote unquote conceal it a little bit.
Yeah, people don't even know I have a pool when they drive by. Like, oh, you got all that back there? They never know. You know what I mean? It's weird.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I can see the pool, is because there's 5 or 6 pieces of fence missing right now.
And I try and keep my place pretty nice, as you notice. So
Right.
we work hard and we play a little hard too, but we keep our things decent.
Right.
We keep the neighborhood nice, even though it's not a neighborhood. So.
No, Mr. Rabia, that's a great point. I would have never known this was here the couple sections of fence hadn't been down, so. Any other questions before we get to the public hearing? All right, at this time, I'll open the public hearing. Mr. Procopio, I didn't see any public input. Did we receive anything?
We did not.
Okay. As there are no comments submitted at this time, I will close the public hearing. Is there any additional questions that the board has? Okay, there being no other questions, would someone like to discuss the 5 factors?
Chuck, it's Mark. I'll discuss the 5 factors prior to making a motion.
Great, Mark, thank you.
Your number 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to the nearby properties will be created. The answer to that is no. Well, like I said earlier, I think this is something you likely won't even see unless you're really going behind the drugstore looking for it.
Ms. Luckett, do you agree?
Oh, yes, I agree.
Gary Palladino, agree.
Gary Natale, agree.
Chuck Stanton agrees. I think you definitely benefit from this extra deep lot that you have.
For sure. Number 2, whether the applicant can achieve his goals via a reasonable alternative, which does not involve the necessity of an area variance. I think the answer to that is definitely no. Given the fact that we're talking about the expansion of a non-conforming residential use property, by definition, you have to have an area variance. So the answer to that is you can't achieve his goal without an area variance.
This is Terry Luckett, I agree.
Gary Palladino, agree.
Gary Natale agrees.
Chuck Stanton agrees.
Okay, whether the variance is substantial. Now, typically, we're talking about numbers and dimensions here. Here we have a situation where we're talking about the expansion of a non-conforming residential use property. Flip a coin, I guess. I guess by definition, it's likely substantial. But again, I think for the reasons that we mentioned, the shape of this lot, where it's located, how he's siting the barn on the property, I think while, the fact that we're allowing the expansion of non-conforming use and it's substantial, I think because of the specifics of this project, I'm going to be okay with it, but by the true spirit of the definition, it is substantial.
Terry Luckett, I agree.
Mark, did you, just for clarification, are you saying it is or is not substantial?
I am saying it's substantial, but again, I think even though we all might say it's substantial based on the definition I created, there's obviously site aspects that are making it, maybe a little bit more palatable than if it was a massive substantial project.
I agree 100% because I answered it as no, but it is because it's non-conforming lot. But yeah, I 100% agree. I agree with that.
Natale agrees.
And Chuck Stanton agrees. And just to put my spin on this, we are obviously almost doubling the amount of structure area on the lot, but this lot is almost, I believe, 30,000 square feet. So that's really while it is a substantial increase in comparison to the rest of the lot, it's really not. So I would agree.
Okay, number 4, whether the variance will have an adverse impact on the physical and environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. I think we talked quite a bit about some of the wetlands definition. I know, I guess, I don't know if we make this a condition or not, but I know we're expecting the federal government to get back to the town with a letter of approval on the project, at least saying that there's no wetlands within 100 feet of the property. But I believe based on what we're hearing that it will not have an adverse impact on the neighborhood.
Terry Luckett, I agree.
Gary Palladino, I agree.
Gary Natale agrees.
And Chuck Stanton agrees, and I would suggest that we do make that conditional. Something along the lines of the approval of this is conditional upon proof from DEC that we are outside of the 100-foot wetland boundary.
Absolutely. Yep.
Is it DEC or is it the federal government?
It would be DEC for this one.
Okay, all right. I thought we said it was federal government. Okay.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
I have her card here also, if you need it, and her number.
Okay. We'll I mean, I think the proper thing to do would be, and if Mr. Procopio needs to reach out to that letter, we can do that. But I would ask you to ask them to.
Oh, sure. She was gonna try and get me something tonight, but she said she wouldn't make it back to the office, but she said she'd try. And I don't see anything in my email, so.
Okay.
And then number 5, whether there's been any self-created difficulty, the answer to that is yes, just by the nature of the fact that the applicant's asking for a variance, but that's not a reason to deny the variance. In fact, it appears all of the bulk regulations are being met on the project.
Terry Luckett agrees.
Gary Palladino agrees.
Gary Natale agrees.
Chuck Stanton agrees.
Okay, with that, I'd like to make a motion for Terry Ross at 5713 Cognite Road for an area variance to allow the expansion of a non-conforming residential use property by the construction of a 40 by 48-foot private accessory use garage on the property with the following condition: that the approval is conditional based on a DEC communication saying that the project is outside the 100-foot or what, farther than 100 feet away from the DEC wetlands.
Okay, do I just bring that to Mr. Procopio?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Robbie, could we also add, or the necessary permits are granted by the DEC for the.
Okay, or then, thank you, Steve, or the necessary permits are granted by the DEC for the project.
That's great. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm not gonna lie to you. She said it was at 100 feet. So,
No,
I'll get that from her
understood.
tomorrow.
It's more formal than anything else at this point.
I agree.
So with that, I'll second the motion. Ms. August, please call the roll.
She's muted.
Mr. Rabia,
Yes, the motion.
Ms. Luckett,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Palladino,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Natale,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes to the motion. Motion carried. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
Do I just hang up?
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't know what to do here. I'm totally lost. I'm all done.
Forget about us.
Yeah, you're all set, sir.
Okay, thank you guys. Have a great night.
Thanks.
Bye.
So does anyone have any other business before the board tonight? Okay,
We're actually getting kind of good at this, Chuck.
we are.
This is scary.
I'm glad you announced yourself too, because nobody would have guessed that.
Wait a minute.
So there being no other business before this board, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, Gary Palladino, make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Good job.
Meeting is adjourned. Next meeting is November 9th, 2020.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys. Good night.
Everybody get out and vote.
Thank you. Anybody still on who made a motion, I will be sending you forms. So check your email.